This week's Parshas Korach, deals with the dispute between the famous machlokas with Korach and Moshe Rabbeinu. And in fact, as we discussed last week, the famous Mishnah in Pirkei Avos in Parakeh Mishnah Yud Zayin, Kol machloka shehi l'shem shamayim sofa l'hiskayim. Any dispute that is l'shem shamayim is going to be lasting. If it's not l'shem shamayim, it won't. What's an example of a machloket l'shem shamayim? That's the machloket Hillel and Shammai, the two great rabbis. What's an example of machloket lo l'shem shamayim? That's Korach v'chol hadaso. And we discussed it should be Korach against Moshe. Korach v'hadaso neged Moshe. And the answer is because that wasn't, even Korach and Hadassah wasn't l'shem shamayim. They all had their own issues, and it was a very superficial togetherness, a common enemy, but they didn't really share the same values. But Hillel and Shammai basically shared all the same similar values. It was just a dispute over specific areas, and they liked the other person. So this gives us an opportunity to discuss, what about learning l'shem shamayim, Talmud Torah l'shem shamayim. So there's people think, you know what, that the more difficult it is, well, there is an issue of amelus, but not difficult. But if you learn something less enjoyable, that's a greater mitzvah of Talmud Torah. And the Iglei Tal, in its introduction, writes it's just the opposite. Many people make a mistake. They think that learning l'shem shamayim is learning something you don't want to learn. He says it's the opposite. It's something you enjoy. The geschmack of learning, that's the highest level of Talmud Torah. That's the l'shem shamayim. And in fact, the Taz writes in Hilchos Nedarim that he asks, how come the halacha is, if you're hamodeh hana mechaveiro, if you say, I'm not going to get benefit from my friend, and he happens to be the Baal Tokeh, he's blowing the shofar in shul, so the halacha is you could use the Baal, you could listen to the shofar. But if you make a neder from a friend, you're not going to be able to use his svarim, his book, so then it's usur. What's the difference? So the Taz explains, based on the Gemaras tell us, mitzvahs lav lahanos nitnu. When we do mitzvahs, when we shake the lulav, when we sit in the sukkah, it's a different type of hana, but it's not the hana that we're doing for our own personal use and benefit. And therefore, whatever it means exactly, but mitzvahs lav lahanos nitnu on a certain level. But Talmud Torah, the whole purpose of Talmud Torah is lahanos nitnu. It's to get benefit. So therefore, you can't use someone else's svarim because that's the purpose of it. And we have a similar halacha. We know there are different types of shomrim in the Torah. Parshas Mishpatim, shomer chinam, shomer sachar, and a shoel. We have someone who watches for nothing, a shomer chinam, he does you a favor. A shomer sachar, someone who gets paid to watch. And a shoel, someone who borrows. And each one comes with their own responsibilities. A shomer chinam is just watching for nothing, he's doing you a favor. So as long as he's not negligent, then he's not responsible. A shomer sachar is getting paid, so he has a higher level responsibility. So even if it's stolen or lost, he's responsible. And a shoel is even chayev ba'onsin, is even obligated if something happens out of his control. Why? Because kol hana shalo, because all the benefit is his. So it's interesting. The rabbis point out that if someone is a shol and a shofar, and then something happens, onus, he's not responsible. But if he's watching svarim, books, Jewish books, and something happens, he is. Because again, because the mitzvahs lav lahanos, the only reason a shol is chayev, is obligated because all the benefit is his. But there is no benefit by Talmud Torah. That is the benefit, and that's by Avram Avinu. Lech lecha lahanascha. You think Avram Avinu would be able to go ahead and leave his hometown and start building a whole nation if he did? Well, I really don't want to do it, but I feel like I have to do it. I'm forced into it. Then you're not going to be successful. To be successful in Limud Torah, you have to want it. You need the ratzon. That's why you call the Talmud Chacham. A Talmud, you're a student of Torah, wisdom, because it's someone who always wants to learn. As the Kutzker always says, someone says, I have no cheshek to learn. What should I do? So they say, develop a cheshek. Whatever. Someone says, I have no desire to eat. Obviously the person has a problem. We have to get him some help, some nutritionist, get him on some pills. So if someone has no cheshek to learn, there's a problem that you have to deal with the issue. But the Shlomo HaMelech, the Chacham Mikol Adam, it was his ratzon. He wanted the trick to becoming a Torah scholar is you have to want it, the ratzon, and that's the enjoyment that's involved. And that's why they point out as well that that's the Indian of Talmud Torah L'Shem Shamayim. So Shammai and Hillel, who involved L'Shem Shamayim, that was Torah. And the highest level of Torah L'Shem Shamayim is enjoying it, the geschmack of learning. So let's spend a couple minutes now discussing a little bit about the mitzvah of Talmud Torah. What exactly is the mitzvah and what does it entail? So the mitzvah of Talmud Torah has two parts. It's what we call the Maaseh Halima, the act of learning, sitting here with the Sefer open, reading it. It's like you have a shake the lulav, you eat the matzah. Most mitzvahs have a Maaseh, have an action attached to it. So too Torah, the act of talking, the act of reading, that's the Maaseh Limud. However, there's a second aspect, and that is the Yediyas HaTorah. It's not just the act of learning, but it's what you keep, it's what you internalize, and what you use for later. You have to know the laws of Shabbos to keep Shabbos. You have to know the laws of kosher to keep kosher. So the two aspects is the Maaseh Mitzvah and the Yediyas HaTorah. So the Beis HaLevi points out, that's why, based on Chazal, that when you're doing a mitzvah, so we say, when you're involved in a mitzvah, so the mitzvah protects you. But once you finish the mitzvah, that's it, like Tashmishe Mitzvah Nizrakin. Once you finish using the mitzvah, in a similar halacha, you could throw out. You do it there covered, but it's b'shas the time of the mitzvah, then it has its kedusha. But Talmud Torah protects you even after you stop learning. Why? Because you still have it with you. The Yediyas HaTorah stays with you. And you can't just crystallize the difference between the Maaseh Limud and the Yediyas HaTorah. You can have a Maaseh Limud, an act of learning without acquiring any knowledge, and you could also have acquiring knowledge without a Maaseh Limud. Let's go discuss first, how could you have an act of learning without actually learning anything? So the commentators give different examples. The famous Gemara Menachos, one of the rabbis said, well, I know everything. I learned Kol HaTorah Kulo, whatever that means exactly. You learn Kol HaTorah Kulo. I know it all. Do I still have to learn? So they say, the pasuk says in Yoshua, V'yigisi bo yoma v'layla. You still have to sit there meditating in Torah day and night. So we see, even that's an example, you're getting a Maaseh Limud, the act of learning, even though in theory you know everything. Or, as the Shulchan Aruch Harav writes and others, that he definitely says that by the Chamisha Chumshei Torah, it's a discussion by the other 24 books, that there's an inyan of this reading from the Chumash, even if you don't understand it. Like Tikkun Leil Shvuos, there's a minhag among the Sfardim to read through the whole Torah, so even though you don't understand it now, at one point you will. But according to the Shulchan Aruch Harav and others, you get a mitzvah of Talmud Torah, albeit a lower level mitzvah, but just by reading the Chumash. However, you're not getting the ideas because you have no idea what you're reading. You know Hebrew, you don't understand it. That's another example of the Maaseh Limud without the Talmud Torah. And another example is the Gemara tells us in Kedushin, not only are you obligated to learn yourself, but you're obligated to teach your son. And what happens, Gemara says, if you want to learn in Kollel and your son does, who gets precedence? So the Gemara says, who called him with, no, you get precedence. Unless, of course, he has much more capabilities, he could be a much better learner. So what's the pshat? Because of Yediyas HaTorah. That you both have the same Ma'aseh Limud, but since he could have more Yediyas HaTorah, that you let him learn in Kollel. So those are examples of a Ma'aseh Limud without Yediyas HaTorah. How could you have the other way? How could you have a Yediyas HaTorah without the Ma'aseh Limud? Is that possible? How could you acquire knowledge without actually doing the act of learning? So that's what the Mefarshim point out. That's the katan. A katan, someone under 13. So he's not obligated any of the mitzvahs. It's only al tzchinach. So there's no ma'isa mitzvah. That's a whole discussion, but we're not going into it, whether the ma'isa of a katan counts or not. But the katan could, so even though he's learning, he is not mechuyev in the mitzvah of Talmud Torah, so there's no chiyuv of the ma'isa limud. However, he's acquiring the Yediyas HaTorah. He's going to need it when he becomes a gadol. Like there's a famous incident with the Rogachover. We know there's a minhag on Erev Pesach that the firstborn sons and some firstborn daughters, they fast. However, the minhag today is to have a siyam. If you finish a certain amount of part, you finish a Gemara, you finish a certain part of Torah, you can make a siyam and you make a party and you can eat. So the question was, they asked the Rogachover, could a katan make a siyam? The only one who knew could, of course the kasha on the story is, why didn't the Rogachover make the siyam? Because he finished Shas probably every week. But why didn't, I don't know. But the question was, so he answered, yes, a katan can, because a katan, even though there's no ma'aseh limud, but in Minat Torah we recognize the Yediyas HaTorah because he has to acquire this to when he becomes a gadol. And that's where Rav Yaakov Kamenetsky says people, we know the Vilna Gaon knew mathematics, science, so when did he learn all of this, if he was learning all the time? So the Bell likes to say, it was when he went to the bathroom, the washrooms, and then he read all his science books. But so Rav Yaakov said it's very difficult to say he was sitting there all day reading his books. So Rav Yaakov says no. He learned all these things when he was a katan, because the girl learned Kol HaTorah Kulo, and he had well before 13, so he had an opportunity that he already had all the Yediyas HaTorah, whatever that means exactly, but he had a lot of them, and therefore a katan is not obligated to be Gisebo Yom V'Layla, it's only a Tzchinach, and therefore that's when he read all his science and his math. So either way, we see a katan as an example where you can have a no ma'aseh limud, no act of learning, or no halachic act of learning, but you still have the second aspect of Yediyas HaTorah. And in fact, that's how they explain. Those are the two different aspects of the mitzvah of Kriyas HaTorah. We know the Gemara talks about Moshe instituting Kriyas HaTorah, Ezra instituting Kriyas HaTorah, and they both instituted Kriyas HaTorah. So, what's the difference between Moshe's Takon and Ezra? So the Gemara tells us that there's two aspects, the Rogachover or Moshe, there are two aspects. One aspect of Kriyas HaTorah is the Kabbalas HaTzibor. The congregation, the Jewish people accept the Torah, B'tzibor. It's a Kabbalas Torah B'tzibor. And that's a reenactment of Maimon Har Sinai. That was Moshe's institution. Moshe's original institution is a discussion. He instituted 3 psukim. So the question is, it's a discussion whether he instituted 3 psukim, 3 aliyahs, 1 pasuk each aliyah, or he only instituted 1 aliyah but 3 psukim. And then Ezra came along and added to it. So there's an interesting machlokes, the Meiri and the Rif. A katan really, even though that's not the minhag, that's not the custom, but a katan can get an aliyah, can get called up to the Torah. And in fact, what Moshe talks about in the context where it's not uncommon, the bar mitzvah boy prepares the wrong parsha. If he prepares the parsha afterwards, there's nothing to worry about. But even if he prepared, he's not bar mitzvah to next week, but he prepared the parsha this week, so Moshe writes, you could give him 1 aliyah. So Meker Adin or Katan get an aliyah, our custom is not. So the Meiri writes, you only have to give a gadol 1 aliyah, and a katan could get 6. The Rif says 3 aliyahs have to go to a gadol, and some say davka, Kohen, Levis are the first 3, and then the rest could be given out of order to anyone. However, the other 4 could be given to katanim. So either way, according to the Meiri, you're having 6 out of 7 to katanim. According to the Rif, you have 4 out of 7 to katanim. What's going on here? What's the machlokas? So the Mefarshim explained is because that's the issue. What was Moshe Rabbeinu's takana? Moshe was a takana for Klal Yisrael. You have to be part of the tzibor to get an aliyah. A katan is not halachically considered part of the tzibor yet regarding this. And therefore, Moshe, according to the Meiri only instituted 1 aliyah, 3 psukim. Therefore, the next 6 aliyahs is because of takanas Ezra. Why did Ezra institute, make it longer? Because people felt it wasn't worthwhile to come in. They wanted to hear, wanted more Torah. So Ezra's takana was out Talmud Torah, to learn more. So therefore, katan is shayches to Yediyas HaTorah. So therefore, he could get part. A katan is included in Ezra's takana, but he's not included in Moshe's takana. And the Rif says Moshe instituted the first 3 aliyahs, and hence only the next 4 he could get. So we see that again, that a katan is included, he's excluded from the tzibor Moshe Rabbeinu's takana, but within the issue of Yediyas HaTorah he's included, hence that's why a katan could get an aliyah and get mafter. So out of the Maisa Limud, the act of learning versus the Yediyas HaTorah, which one takes precedence? I mean, which one takes precedence? Why is it a choice? So in other words, let's say you have 6 hours to learn, and you could stay in your hometown and learn for 6 hours. You just go across the street and you go to the shir, your Beis HaMedrash next door. Or let's say you have a Rabbi who lives an hour away, or a chavrusa where you're going to learn much better. So, but you're going to lose an hour each way traveling. So what should you do? Should you do an act of learning for 6 hours, do a Maisa Limud, but with less Yediyas HaTorah, but with less knowledge? Or do I learn for 4 hours and have more? So all the Gedolei Achronim, Rabbi Aaron Kotler, Yisrael Salanta, Yishochanan Acharav all say Yediyas HaTorah takes precedence, like we saw in the Gemara Kedushin, that usually the father comes before the son. However, if the son is more capable, we say the son gets it. And that's how they explain. We know that Allah is you're allowed to leave Eretz Yisrael to learn by your Rabbi, because usually you're not allowed to leave Eretz Yisrael, but to acquire more Yediyas HaTorah is permitted. Or for Ben Azai, the discussion whether not getting married, because if him got married, he would require less Yediyas HaTorah. So we see, according to the Gedolei Achronim, Yediyas HaTorah takes precedence. So we see there are 2 aspects. There's the aspect of the Maisa Limud, the act of learning it, and there's the Yediyas HaTorah. The Beis HaLevi says that's why Torah is different than other mitzvahs, that it protects you even after the mitzvah. We had the Gemara Menachas that you learn all day, Migisa bo yomam v'layla, and even though you still have a chiyuv to learn more, or like we said, reading the Chumash without understanding, or the Vilna Gaon learning science and math when he was younger. On the other hand, we have Yediyas HaTorah without Ma'aseh Libed. That's the katan. That's the 2 takanas of Kriyas HaTorah. That the katan shayach to Talmud Torah. That's why you could get Ezra's takana. You could get called up for an aliyah, and that's why the Ragachava says a katan can make a Ragachava says a katan can make a siyam. And that's the pshat, that the machlokas l'shem shamayim, that's the machlokas hill of the shamai, of learning for the l'man ha'emes, trying to strive for the truth. And that's what we said, learning l'shem shamayim means the learning l'shma. The highest level is enjoying the learning, not forcing yourself. Of course, if the choice is not learning versus not learning at all versus forcing, of course you do that. That's how lo lishma, bo lishma. But the highest level is to enjoy the learning. And the more you enjoy the learning, the greater Geshmak it is in the greater mitzvah of Torah Lishma. And that's what we learn out from the Mishnah and Pirkei Avos. But even though they also write, you better to serve your Rebbe L'Shem Shamayim, but however Shalol Lishma it takes times to get there, but the ultimate is Hillel and Shammai, who are the ultimate looking for the Mana Emes. So to Torah, the Ikar is, as the Taz says, Mitzvahs Rav Lahanos Nitnu, however Torah Lahanos Nitnu. The whole purpose of Torah is to get benefit, and that's why as well, that's the Igaital, the whole Ikar Lishma is the Geshmak, is the enjoyment of learning.